everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. Tonight is a special night. It is October 23rd or 25th. We are close enough to Halloween, so it's dress up night. And so I'm Marilyn Julie Monroe, and we're going to have some fun tonight. We're here every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. I am always the host, and we've been doing this for 3.5 years, bringing people together to listen to speakers who are specialists and creating value for our listeners who have been doing something special in the industry. They are helping us understand what product they're putting out, how they can add value to your deal, how they can help you understand something about creating more NOI, paint colors. We've had construction people, all sorts of different topics here at Zoom at 8. Tonight, we're going to be talking about solar and all the advantages of putting solar and renewable energy on your multifamily properties. The impetus for having BPI here tonight was the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, which was with Communify Solutions, which was Corky Roth is with us tonight. It is his company that was here with Sarah Flores. She shared with us a couple different ways to, change your NOI using Wi-Fi, using the billing on your solar, as well as the RUBS program. So that made me start to think, okay, what about solar? How do we deal with solar? And then they introduced us, or me, to BPI. And we had on that call, actually, Claire Hobday joined us and gave us a little information about BPI. And so I invited her back, and I think the information that's going to be shared tonight is going to be invaluable. But here's the thing. If you're sitting there and saying, I don't care about solar, I want you to really dig deep. If you're not in California and you're coming in and thinking, hey, this doesn't really appeal to me. It doesn't really appeal. It doesn't even, nobody sees it on the radar because I'm not in California. I'm not in New York. I want you to listen up because I think there are some great opportunities in these renewable solutions that are going to be shared tonight. It's not just for the people on each side of the United States that are looking at sustainability issues. There are opportunities that the government are giving you some opportunities to save some money, some credits. And why not look at not just changing, your dog parks, fixing, putting washer and dryers. All that stuff is kind of some hard work. Why not let the sun create some NOI for you? That's what we're here to talk about tonight. So I want to introduce you to BPI. There's a couple people here that are going to be doing a lot of the conversation, but there is a support team behind them as well that is here tonight. So BPI tax advisor, Tony Ruffine, is here. Tony works with BPI's tax credit and incentive advisor. He is a hands-on, team-oriented leader with a history of advising businesses on growth strategies, complex new markets, and establishing financial relationships for challenging projects in the renewable energy and building materials industries, and has provided tax equity financing for over $1 billion in completed projects. Tony was formerly a vice president of renewable energy, sustainability, and strategic marketing at GAF and the world's largest roofing materials company. So we're going to talk a little bit about the materials with the solar, how they're also marrying each other, and opportunities when you're putting roofing materials on your with your solar. And then we also have Claire Hobday, who is the CEO of BPI. She started her career in accounting at an advisory firm, a little one, PwC, anyone ever heard of them, rising in the ranks as audit manager before moving into corporate financial roles. Before moving to BPI as CEO, Claire spent the 12 years in the wine industry in the US and New Zealand, with her 4 years as CEO for Mondavi and family. Claire is a highly experienced and dynamic strategic thinker and has worked in roles across the globe. She was born in Bermuda. She's schooled in Colorado and university degreed in England. Claire spent a stint in PwC's Zimbabwe office in her 20s, worked and lived in New Zealand for 13 years, and lived back in the US since 2013. Claire holds a combined Bachelor of Arts in Law and Music, is qualified as a chartered accountant, and completed an executive MBA in the wine industry in 2018. Claire currently lives in the Napa Valley with her husband and enjoys hiking, biking, wine tasting. And if she can wine taste and hiking together, that is a wonderful marriage. And she also likes to go traveling to where her children are in New Zealand, New York, and in Florida. So we're going to have a very compelling conversation tonight. I'm sure Claire has lots of experience that she's traveled the globe and lots of information about wine tasting. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. Along with her crew is Ryan Wickham. Also in the house is Corky Roth with, as I mentioned earlier, Communify Solutions. And then we also have, where are you? Oh, Tanner Richter is also in the house. He's also with BPI. These guys are here to support the conversation. So let's get started. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me tonight. Claire, let's get started with you. Thank you so much. Tonight, we're going to listen to you, and we've got lots of information to share. ROI, talk about appreciation, talk about the tax advantages. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you because I know that you guys have so much that you would like to share with our audience tonight.
Well, thank you for that lead in, Ms. Monroe. I also liked your lead in the purpose of the Zoom, which was really to aid understanding and to indicate where potential areas of value exist. And so what we've been really intent on doing with BPI, and you could think of us as a solar, EV charging, roofing company, but what we really stand for is improving the financial benefits to landlords, multifamily property owners, wineries, commercial and industrial properties as well. So the ways that we do that, and the way that we're really diving in at the moment, is to understand the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act. So to us, as geeky as we are in everything to do with solar, this has been a game-changing moment. And Tony, who is here as well, will really dive into some of the details of how it used to look and how it looks now. So understanding this is really a minefield, and so we've done the hard yards so that you don't have to. And we've given a couple of case studies, both in California and out of California and Arizona, so you can understand what the implications are to your NOI, to your asset value, to your enterprise value in terms of the increase to your property and the now transferable credits that you receive. So used to be the case where if you weren't able to use the credits in your own business, then you're kind of stuck. And I think that's a key reason why the implementation of tax credits hasn't had that much traction, but the Inflation Reduction Act has really improved that scenario. With roofing now being able to be rolled into the tax credits for eligible roofs, that's another incentive. So for those of you, and I did hear a couple of weeks ago that there are owners out there who have recently purchased older properties. So if you're looking at something with a 30-year roof on it, you may be thinking, okay, I'm going to replace this roof. So at the same time, replace the solar, and you double down on those tax benefits. So I think the overall ability to drive much more value out of your property is in the NOI. So there's benefits there that Tony will talk you through, the enterprise value and the asset value. So Tony's been the lucky guy who's been diving into all of this. So I will bring up at this point in time an extremely short PowerPoint. It's only a few pages. One to give you the landscape as it now exists, and then to go very briefly through those two case studies. So just give me 1 second.
And if everybody would give attention, if you could go to your right-hand side of your screen, you can pull up, there's 9 little dots. Go over there, click on it, and give the speaker view. That seems to be helpful. And then you get full screen of the speaker.
All right. Everyone can see the slide?
Yep, you're good.
Although I guess if you can't, I can't see you raise your hand because I'm in full screen view. So, so just by way of background, I was at a company called GAF, as Marilyn stated, the largest manufacturer of roofing. And in about 2014, we had been investing in a variety of things in solar. You know, there's no surprise that if you're a roofing manufacturer, you keep an eye on solar because of all the solar roofing kind of conversations. About 2014, we launched a tax fund, a tax equity fund, about $150 million a year of tax equity investment. And I won't really walk through what tax equity is, except to say that it is a way to invest in larger solar projects by providing them tax advantages and taking some of the tax advantages for somebody who's a taxpayer. And, you know, real estate has certain taxes that they can take advantage of and certain tax credits they can't. The ITC is really not a great credit for real estate owners, the investment tax credit. So I have placed about $1 billion of tax equity in a variety of projects, almost all what we say commercial industrial, from unfortunately I'm going to speak a little bit of solar here, 0.5 megawatt or 250,000 kilowatt, 500,000 kilowatt size, up to about 30, 40 kilowatt size, and then 1 or 2 larger projects in that space. GAF wanted to invest in residential rooftop products. I had no interest in residential rooftop products, and I left there in 2018, and have been really doing a lot of work in the tax credit investment with some monies that we were able to put together, and then working with the BPI team sort of informally on helping them figure out some of the tax structures on what they were looking at. And that's a way to say I'm a solar person at this point, in spite of 20 years at a roofing manufacturer. I would say that unlike roofing, solar is a very local market. And if you're not in California, you may be shaking your head and say, well, this doesn't work. We're not in California. We're doing projects in up and down the East Coast. Massachusetts is a tremendous market. Depending on where you are in Texas, the rules in some of the states, some of the areas are very good. It depends on the utility, depends on the town, it depends on the building type. And if this were June of this year or May of this year, we probably would not be having this conversation. We would still have been doing plenty of solar, but the complexity of the rules would have made it hard to do on smaller buildings. And in August, really in July, much to everyone's surprise, Senator Joe Manchin said he could support some changes in the energy and tax rules. And in August, they passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which made some big changes to the investment tax credit. And this chart, which hopefully you can all see, kind of walks through them. And like anything else with regard to taxes and tax credits, and I know that there are some tax experts on here, the devil is always in the details. But at a high level, the biggest change for me was that the investment tax credit was locked in at 30% through 2033. So if you spend $1 million on a solar project, you can get back at $300,000. Previously, that was 26%, dropping to 22% next year, and dropping down to 10% after that. And there were some rules where you could have extended the 26% by a couple of years, but it doesn't matter. Those rules they passed, and immediately the law said 30%. There is a nuance regarding prevailing wage on installs, but at least anybody we talk to now says to get crews, you're pretty much paying prevailing wage anyway. So right now that is sort of a non-issue. The other thing that just the base credits did was put some stackable adders onto there. So if you are building a project in a low income or tribal community, and the definitions are coming out, there's an extra 10% of the cost of the project. So on that fictional $1 million project, another 100,000. If it is also going to benefit that community, if you have low income buildings and the tenants benefit, it could be as high as 20%. If that project is in something called an energy community, which is a community where they either have a closed coal plant, coal mine, natural gas plant, etc., or whether there was employment in the energy sector, but that the sector is economically challenged, there's another 10% adder. And if the solar project has domestic content starting at about 40% and going up to about 100% in a few years, to about 100%, probably about 90% in a few years, there's another 10%. So before, the maximum credit you could get was 26% this year. In 2023, the maximum available is 70%. That's, if you could qualify for the 30% ITC, 20% project benefiting, 10% energy community, and 10% domestic content. The other big changes to the ITC that make it interesting, I think, to a property owner or multifamily property owner is the tax credits are hard to be utilized by partnerships, but now the tax credits can be sold to select taxpayers without setting up a tax equity partnership, which is a fairly expensive thing to do and gives an add-on partnership to a partnership, which, as anybody who's doing books on those partnerships knows is complicated enough. The credits can just be sold to a taxpayer, and those rules are still coming together. By January, they should be announced, but we have a number of taxpayers looking to buy credits who would not have been interested in tax equity. So there's a ready market for it. Certain nonprofits can actually get the credits refunded to them, and I don't know how many of you are working in certain light C markets or anything like that, but those credits can be refunded. And then, especially in a place like Texas, adding storage onto the project or even putting standalone storage, maybe supporting EVs, there's extra ITC available for those projects in a much simpler way. And again, those credits can be transferred or sold to a taxpayer. So as we looked at it, look, California is still, by and large, the easiest place to do solar, although the Northeast is tremendous for it. Parts of Virginia, my home state, are very good for it. The Carolinas have a mixed bag, depending on which utility you're in. And a good portion of Texas make for good solar for multifamily. And I think, Claire, I guess I can pause for questions, and I can also turn it back over to Claire to talk about some of the case studies.
All right, John Davis has a question. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you do any like covered parking, like parking lots or parts of parking lots with solar? Yeah,
in fact, I think one of the examples that Claire has slides for are from the carport. And they make a terrific place for solar. There's also a lot of mandates around the country around EVs and EV charging, and carports make a great story. By and large, these same credits are available for them. So.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
And Claire will get into specific projects a little more too.
Perfect. Any other questions before we move forward? All right, Claire, you're up.
Okay, over to me. So, right, I have a couple of examples for you. The first one is an actual California client that we did a carport installation for. The figures that you'll see here were based at the time on the estimated utility energy use. So this is for illustrative purposes. And then we do see that there's less than a 3-year payback on this property. So again, the devil is in the detail. So this is really just to give you a flavor of what is available for the particular client. This was a 50% ITC benefit. So they were able to get the baseline 30% plus 10% for domestic content. The year one NOI on this project turned out to generate a further 156,000 that the property hadn't generated prior. So where that was coming from, you'll understand that any property that has individuals flowing through a utility, the utility is really kind of grabbing the profit on the generation of power. So in this instance, with there being some differential between what the property is able to charge to its tenants and what it is generating in power from the solar, 156 just in year one. There are some modest tenant savings of $7,900. The total system cost for this property was 1.6 million, which the property did fund itself. But in so doing, it derived depreciation and ITC benefits of $1.1 million. So overall, just in looking at the total property value increase for this property, it was nearly $2.6 million. This was based over 35-year utilization and 26% IRR. So, you know, it's just we've done this for multiple clients, and we have benefited those clients in this 1 year of what was previously going to be a 26% ITC benefit has now increased for them to a full 50. So very pleased with California.
That's incredible.
And then turning to an Arizona proposal we have out currently. So we are pitching for this deal. It's rooftop solar in this example. It's a proposed installation. Again, we've utilized the utility bills from this property to estimate what their energy use currently is and how they'll benefit from the implementation of solar. And what we're seeing is that this is a less than a 4-year payback for this property. So same kind of rules apply. In this case, we've used only a 40% ITC benefit, which was the baseline 30%, and I believe domestic content Sorry, the previous California was a 50% because it was also in a low income zone. So what we calculated on this is a year one net operating income increase of $44,000. We have, again, fairly modest tenant savings of $2,200. Again, this is savings on what they would currently have paid on the property. Total system cost on this is actually lower, $643,000. But then they have the depreciation and the ITC benefits almost offsetting that entire amount. So the increase to the property value over this period is $735,000 with an 18% IRR. So a lot of numbers, but just in general terms, what we're focusing on when we're doing our proposals and finalizing our deals on current clients is what is the additional benefit to the property on NOI. There are also incremental savings to the tenants. But mostly the property value is increasing over the short, medium, and long term. And then the system costs in large part is almost entirely offset by depreciation and benefits from the ITC. So again, those ITC benefits are transferable, as Tony's explained. I think that really makes it appealing for those properties that previously would have thought this a nice to have, but not a must to have. And I think going forward, we're really just recognizing that this is a fund that is available. We're figuring it out. We're helping our clients. We're not just a get in and get out solar installer. We're really taking the charge and understanding these credits and assisting our clients along the way.
And just a couple of things we should note about this particular setup, and maybe look, we're solar people. Like I said, I can give you hundreds of reasons why we think people should go solar or add solar to their buildings. One, with a flat roof, good portions of the roof cost, if you have to re-roof, can usually be rolled into the cost of solar. So there would be a rebate tax credit on portions of the roof. We've seen, up to 70% has been accepted by the IRS as sort of a standard number with some, again, I'm not giving anybody particular tax advice, but we can get some support for numbers of that sort. So if you're re-roofing, there's an offset to the cost of that re-roof. And, Claire points out the value to the tenants. I've seen in Texas and some of the QCs, if anyone's doing a business in Denton or outside of Austin or any of those places, in Arizona, in California, and other markets, where if the landlord is providing power to the tenant at less than utility price, then the landlord is able to sell that power to the tenant and then take advantage of the solar. In other cases, we see where the landlord is able to put enough solar on the roof or in the carport to take care of energy use in common areas, pool heaters, the lights, the heating, cooling in the hallways, and the laundry and things like that, where they might not want to cover the roof with solar, but they're able to get a big reduction, take those tax credits, again, maybe offset portions of the roof cost in order to power those other parts, the common areas, without having to get into the tenants. So there are a few different ways that a landlord can look at adding solar to their rooftop and keeping the benefits, keeping the income, and being able to, as a result, get some sort of multiple on the added NOI.
I'll also give a plug back to Corky. You heard Sarah Flores, for those of you who were on a couple of weeks ago. BPI and Communify have been partnering on potential managed Wi-Fi plus solar plus EV charging billing for landlords. So there are opportunities again where we are going in with solar to enable the new facility for managed Wi-Fi, particularly in those common areas as well. So it's a great partnership for us to really make life easier for the landlords, make things more consistent for the tenants, and really drive that NOI benefit in multiple ways. Any questions from anyone?
I do have a question. Actually, I've got a lot of questions. So, are you finished with your
I am. Let's stop
case
that.
studies? Okay, so
Those-
why don't we go back?
Those are
Okay,
our slides, yes.
Okay, perfect. Those are great. I'm wondering if you would be able to forward those to us. I'd love to put them. We send out a package every Friday
Mhm.
with the video, so that would be great to have those for our listeners.
Definitely will.
It's actually interesting. This morning, we get the Nextdoor. I don't know if you guys get the Nextdoor app, but the Nextdoor app, my husband says, I don't know why you listen to that darn thing. It has caused us so many problems for everybody. But one of the things that they were saying is, I can't get any help. My solar company has gone out of business. Not to say that you guys would go out of business, but what is to protect the user, the company that would be used, multifamily operator to put this on their property. 3 years later, it goes out of business or whatever. How do you protect our client?
Through warranties. Yeah, sorry, Tony, go for it.
Yeah, on Nextdoor, you're reading things about residential projects,
Of course.
and those have been, I mean, I told you I opted out of being in the residential solar project space because it is rife for fraud and misleading people. And of course, I'm not an investor at the level you all are, but I have invested in some real estate, and I know that, multifamily is also ripe for people coming after us with ideas that we probably shouldn't listen to sometimes. The things that protect you versus that, there was a company that just went out of business that financed a number of solar projects, guaranteeing savings to homeowners, and had them take out fairly 100% loans on the solar, and may have gone out of business before they even completed the install or got it hooked up by the utility. Is that you're working directly with us around where the utility is. You'll see where the hookups are. The approvals will be in place, and we're using very standard equipment. And if you have not done solar, you might be thinking that there's no such thing as standard equipment. It's new technology, but I forget what the number is, but 270,000 roofs a year going solar, and the same things that are going with utilities, the same equipment materials are being used here. So while BPI expects to be here to service equipment for till time immemorial, the way the equipment is put in place, you'll have the ability to bring in other people to service it if necessary. And again, we wouldn't expect you to need anyone other than us to do, or a national company who's been doing this for a number of years on a variety of different types of commercial and multifamily properties around the country.
In fact, right by my house, you guys did the Walmart. You guys told me about. You did the whole solar infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
talk about that.
that's right. Yeah, in Carlsbad in San Diego, in Brescia Ranch, there is a big Walmart over there on College Boulevard, and we did all the carport solar for that entire shopping center, as well as several projects for the city of Escondido, and several projects throughout San Diego. And so, yeah, but to speak to Tony and Marilyn Monroe's concerns about, solar and all that is a concern, right? Especially with the uncertainty that that companies have nowadays, and just investors in general, right? It's crazy times out there. But really, we've been around for 15 years. We started in 2008, and that was a rough year for everybody. And coming out of 2020 and into the roaring 20s, we are rapidly expanding as a company, both internally and externally. So from a recession-proof model, BPI is definitely up there with the standard that we like to set. And I think at the end of the day, we're all thinking about the amount of dog parks that we can create with the energy savings that we can enable you. So that's what we're
That's
after too. Is we're looking to create excellent painting on the buildings, and huge dog parks with the energy savings. So that's a huge plus for your clients.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to say is, and if you kind of dummy it down, if you talk the solar charge to the building is like just 5 cents. And then you go and you charge the tenant, the resident, 9 cents. The difference, you guys, is 4 cents, right? That is the profit for you, the NOI put in your pocket per door, every kilowatt. It's your money. That's simple math like that. Am I correct, Claire? That's
You are correct. And I just did want to touch briefly on your previous point on just the sustainability of companies in the solar space. And I do echo Tony's point that commercial solar, I think, has been more robust than residential solar. It's a tough market out there. There's a lot of companies getting into it and a lot of companies failing out. But I think the quality is in the initial panels installed, the quality of the manufacturers and the installation. And then really, apart from that, it is a case of making sure that as owners, you take care of that. And so we put into place agreements to come and clean and repair, and those are rolling 5-year agreements. So I think it would be in the owner's worthwhile to set those agreements into place, and those are transferable between different companies as well. So once that agreement rolls off, you can establish one with another company. So I think the first is in the quality of the initial installation, and then in the care and maintenance after that.
good point. Very good. Thank you for identifying very important information to share. Thank you. But breaking down the simple NOI, because I think we can get stuck in the big numbers. If you simply think about, RUBS is, again, you looking at your utility usage, your water, your electricity, all bills paid. If you just simply think about, okay, you're billing this at, you're getting billed at 5, you're billing your tenant at 9, that's a 4 cent savings that goes into your pocket. That is huge, friends. That's something that we are losing sense. We're losing this idea of that's money left on the table. And you got to be looking at this differently. Don't be looking for the pennies, go for the quarters. This is a quarter. You want to be looking at a bigger project. Now the NOI on this, I just want to be really clear about it. With all of these new credits, can be very short. I mean, right? It shortens that ROI. What it would be in half in some cases, right? From 26% to 50%. That ROI is incredibly short. So it would be. So let's talk about what are the steps that someone would need to take in order to figure out if their project, what their savings would be? How would they engage you?
So initially what we would do would be a very broad assessment of the property and the zone that it exists in, and that gets down to the specific zip code and utility. And then it's looking at the entity level as well. So it is a combination. It's not just a one easy fix suits for all, but the initial proposal would be to look at the maximum available tax credits from our point of view. Obviously, that would need to be verified from the tax advisors for the entities, but that would then the utilities. How we would go with that would be to get the latest bills. We can see what has been paid in the most recent 3 or 4 quarters, and then do an assessment on the potential savings using solar. That we essentially take your property, we build the solar in a very visible format, as you saw, and you'll see again once the presentation goes out. So you can really graphically see what it will look like on your building, and then the benefits that will be derived. Then using the difference between what you pay now and what you would pay, that's where the CAM calculation comes into play. That's where the depreciation comes into play on the original cost, and then the tax credits on top of that. Then in terms of how you utilize the tax credits, whether you use them in your own enterprise or transfer them, that would be a separate conversation. But definitely for that initial first look, it's a pretty quick turnaround to be able to give an appraisal of that.
That is fantastic. So you could essentially be looking at this property, running the numbers in your underwriting model, be looking at your insurance, looking at your taxes, run this by you guys and running it in the model and putting in an LOI essentially in a week's time, we could get information back from you guys. Is it that quick?
It is that quick, and that's because and again I'm kind of advertising for BPI, but we're like a full turnkey design, engineering, interconnections. I mean, the interconnection space is really complicated in the US and is multiple utilities and multiple different areas. So we have employees specifically designated to just doing interconnections and figuring that out. So because you're dealing just with a one-stop shop, not numbers of different vendors, we are able to turn that around in at least, again, just in terms of that preliminary look, in a tight time frame. And then as you wind into the more detailed view on the utility usage, that's when we would start getting more specific, but certainly you'd get a great first glance.
Wow, that is spectacular. You know, we're looking at water conservation. You guys would also run that by them at the same time. So this is a great time to be reaching out to BPI and having them run the numbers for you before you put in the LOI. I love that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share with the audience before we break into networking? Or is there anybody in the audience that has a question? How does cost segregation, is it the same? Is it created? Is it handled the same as any of the other, your roof, your doors, your windows, your interior? How is that managed? Do you know? Is that a Tony question?
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that because I don't know how it's handled for roofs, windows, doors,
Okay.
but it is roughly the same. There is a pull-out to say this is part of the solar project that can be used against the tax credits that can be put into the tax basis for the solar project. Certain fees can roll into that, certain fees can't roll into that. Certain parts of the installation, certain parts of the roof can roll into the solar project. And so there is a cost seg done
Okay.
that can be super complicated or not super complicated depending on what we're putting into the credits. But yeah, there would be a cost seg done. I can't.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I can't speak for Mark as to whether that's a service he provides. Certainly, we have people who would provide that on the tax side for you all.
Okay. Okay. And then
I go to Mark first. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then my last question would be, so we close the deal and we're decided to go with solar. What's the time frame from the time that we've closed to the time that we would implement and get the deal up and running and be getting solar on our property?
With
Oh, gosh.
the broad, it depends. Starting with
Yeah.
the it depends piece, you know, like anything else in construction right now,
Yeah.
panels are not readily available. And obviously a larger project can take longer than a smaller project. And the local utilities and inspectors are often the gating piece. So let's say it's 6 months if things work well, you know, maybe a little less than that if things work
Okay.
exceptionally well, but 6 months if things work well, but then you have to get into the queue on local utilities, and that can
Run the
move.
gamut.
Certainly
Yeah.
as you, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And
and the answer might be, you know, how long will it take to get a roof right now? Well,
Yeah. No,
where
I
are
wasn't
you? What
sure if it
type
was
of roof?
a year project or if it was, a 3 months project, but it sounds like, 6 months, around 6 months.
6 months to a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, it would depend on if you were doing a roof as well as a solar. So I would
Sure.
expect that to be on the longer side. And then, as Tony mentioned, the supply chain issues, particularly around some of the componentry, switch gear, getting into the technicals. But there's anything between 6 months to a year wait on those, and that really enables you to do the final switch over. So size of project obviously matters, but I would think like on smaller projects from contract to turning on would be 6 to 9 months.
okay, perfect. Great. John?
Yeah, Tony, you kind of touched on the storage earlier, but I wasn't clear. Are you actually doing anything with batteries? Because I think in Massachusetts, they stopped, I think, allowing the Tesla batteries to be used because the technology wasn't there yet. So I'm not sure how that's transitioned to multifamily, if you guys doing that at all.
I can't speak to the Tesla battery per se, but Massachusetts is a super supportive market for medium and larger scale batteries, and requiring that at some level, it's an advantage. Massachusetts has a number of different energy rates, and exactly where you're doing the work may talk about where that's an advantage, but Massachusetts in and of itself is very supportive of storage. I think some of the Tesla home storage batteries gets back to what I was saying about the work done at homes, where they're being really aggressive about what the benefits might be, and homeowners don't really know how to push back on that.
Okay. Yeah, it could have been just residential stuff, so that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Great. Well, thank you very much, Claire and Tony and the rest of the team. I so appreciate you being here, kind of clarifying what kind of credits are out there. Sustainability is a big buzzword especially here on the West Coast. We're all going vegan. I'm a Chigan, but I think that it brings awareness to all of us to what's going to happen in other areas of the country, what is available, and how to increase your NOI. That's what we're all looking to do. And this is certainly an option and an opportunity to look at making a difference in this world. Okay. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Oh, Corky has a question. Corky,
Well, actually, I have a statement. So
Oh, you have a
first of all,
statement. Okay.
nice work, everybody. I love the wig. I
Thank
mean,
you.
Getting
Yes.
on and seeing that, it just made my evening.
She's just channeling you, Corky.
Exactly. Pretty much. Thank you, Claire. Anyway, the only thing I wanted to say to the group was, I mean, there's a lot of downward pressure right now on NOI going into these headwinds for all multifamily sponsors and owners. And for managed Wi-Fi and with solar, they're both revenue generating models to increase this NOI and increase value. As Claire and team Ryan just said, the proposals cost you nothing. As you're acquiring new properties and as you're thinking about ways to add value to these properties, reach out to us and just say, hey, give me a quote on this property. We can turn around really quick. It's something you can just put in your quiver to just say, is this something we really want to do? How much value can it add? When you're adding, $1, $2, $3 million to these $200-300 or door complexes, it's really meaningful. And it really is, there's no cost to you guys to just go out and get some proposals out to really start thinking about and see if this is something you guys want to do. So I just wanted to say it's easy for us to do. It's great for you guys to take a look at how it really quantifies your value add program.
Right. I think that's great. I appreciate you stepping in here and saying that. That's very helpful. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Make sure you put your contact, Claire, put your contact information for you or for the company, how people will get a hold of your company in the chat. And we look forward to receiving those slides so we can get those to our listeners.
Right. And at the end of the slides is my email and my phone as well, although I did put that in the chat, as I see some of my team have too. So thank you for the opportunity, and nice to meet everybody. And I look forward to seeing you after Halloween at next Tuesday's session.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.